Today on Wrist, Beards, and Gear, we go over home recording on a budget. So I thought I'd finally make a budget-friendly home recording tutorial for you guys that are just starting out or looking to maybe step it up a little bit. Either way, hopefully you'll learn something from this, and let's get started. But I think first we need to establish some ground rules. Not everyone is rocking MacBook Pros or iMacs or anything like that, so I'm going to assume the following. You are running a PC, Windows-based laptop, maybe 3-4 years old, and you have a budget, let's say, of $500 or less. We'll go as low as possible, but that's just kind of a ballpark figure that we should start out with. Central to your entire setup, first and foremost, is your computer. Now, these days, stock baseline computers are completely capable of recording audio. Now, doesn't really matter at this point if you're going PC or Mac. The big pro guys use Macs primarily, although that is starting to shift to PC as well. So really, it doesn't really matter what you pick. Just get as much RAM as possible, get as much memory as possible, and you should be fine. I started out recording and doing the videos on this YouTube channel with a $300 Gateway PC tower. Before purchasing an interface, you need to ask yourself the following questions. What do I intend to do with it? What do I think I might want to do with it in the future? And what is my budget? USB interfaces these days range from single guitar jack inputs to multi-channel boxes such as this Focusrite 2i4. Being the link in the proverbial chain that gets your guitar signal into your computer, you want to spend a decent amount of money on your interface. Don't cheap out. Don't get some no-name brand that you've never heard of off eBay for $50. Get a good interface. Now, the main differences between the interfaces that you will see is FireWire versus USB, and the number of inputs and outputs each interface offers. Now, in my particular case, I chose a Focusrite 2i4 because it had the options that I was looking for. Those include 2 inputs on the front. I can use them with a microphone. I could plug my guitar straight into them, and most importantly, it has input pads. Now, other interfaces like the Focusrite 2i2 and the PreSonus Audio Box are looking for a mic level signal, and instrument level being slightly higher. If you plug your guitar into it, despite it saying instrument input, you will clip your DI in your guitar. So pads are important, and it basically brings down the gain of the input just a little bit more, so you're not clipping and i.e. distorting your guitar signal going into your computer. It is also important to note that basic 1 or 2 input interfaces that are USB powered do not require an external power supply, whereas the FireWire variants of the same interface will require a separate power cord or wall wart, transformer adapter, or something like that. So if you don't want to carry that around, I highly recommend USB. So far we have plugged our guitar into our interface and it's going into our computer. Now, what do we want to mix on? What do we want to listen to our tones that we are getting on? Now, I generally wouldn't recommend headphones as a primary source because they can be a little too detailed and they tend to add a lot of bass, and the mix reference headphones that you can get are very, very expensive. So I highly recommend just some basic, decent monitors. Now, I started out with the M-Audio AV40s that are like $120 a pair. They're cheap, bang for the buck, and I used them for several years, and that's what I learned on primarily. Now, the point of monitors is to not run your laptop speakers. They are not going to sound that great, and if you were trying to mix or even dial in a decent guitar tone with Ampsim software or something like that, is not going to be true to what the rest of the world will hear when they listen back to it. So number 4, your DAW. DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation, and these days They're very, very powerful. And again, you need to ask yourself, what do you want to accomplish with the DAW and your overall goal with home recording? Do you intend to be a studio pro eventually? Because if you do, I highly recommend just starting out with Pro Tools or getting Pro Tools Express, something like that. But if you do not intend to be a super broke studio guy, you have lots of options available. The DAW I would highly recommend learning on is Reaper. Reaper is a full functioning DAW that has all the best features from Logic and Pro Tools, and that has a great support forum on the website and is run by just a handful of people, so changes can be made quick and easy once new versions are rolled out and if bugs are found. It's a great DAW. Now, surely you're probably wondering, why doesn't he recommend GarageBand? Well, GarageBand doesn't have all of the features that you might want even a few months into recording at home, and you're going to find yourself wanting to move over into an actual full-featured DAW that has automation and, you know, buses and all that stuff. So you might as well just start off with a legit DAW. Now, Reaper is $60 for a license. That is super cheap for what you get. I had Reaper and learned on it for 2 solid years before finally moving on to Logic Pro X for various reasons. However, if I had to, I could jump right back into Reaper and I would have no problem using it again. So to quickly recap, we have our computer, PC-based, running Reaper as a DAW. We have an interface that we have chosen, probably USB, probably Focusrite, PreSonus, something of that nature. And guitar tones. We haven't talked about guitar tones yet, and that's where it gets very, very broad. When it comes to guitar tones, on a budget, you have a lot of options. Now, if you wanted to spring for Amplitude 3, you are going to get some of the best amp sims, in my opinion, but you will pay about $200 to $300. Now, if you happen to have an iPad, you can get Positive Grid's Jam Up Pro for, I think it's $10 or $20. It's less than $20. Very cheap and very, very good tones. Now, there's also several free amp sims that you can get if you're running a PC from TSE and Lapoo and things like that. I would highly recommend just Googling free amp sim plugins and you can get all sorts of cool stuff. Now, if you don't have an iPad, that's okay. Positive Grid is putting their Jam Up app in a desktop version that you can run independently and within your DAW as a plugin. And that will be very little money, and that is also a very good option for very good guitar tones. So to recap, your 5-year-old PC is probably just fine for basic recording using Reaper as your DAW. Your interface, probably going to be USB. Use a brand name interface. Definitely don't go with some no-name brand. The reason why you should go with the big brand names that everyone has is because they have the experience and the knowledge for the drivers. And so you don't want to spend most of your time trying to find the odd driver in order for your interface to work with your computer, especially PCs. You want to just plug in and go. That's why I highly recommend PreSonus, Focusrite. Some instances, I guess M Audio would be a good option, things like that. And your guitar tones are all dependent on you and your budget, but I highly recommend Amplitude 3 as a plugin. You can get great tones for bass guitar and regular guitar. Jam Up Pro is good from Positive Grid on the iPad, and there you go. I hope that has helped a little bit. My name is Fluff. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and as always, thank you for watching.